I found the envelope on my windshield. No postage, no address, just my name, written in jagged marker strokes. The paper felt oddly warm, like it had been held tight in someone's palm for too long. I looked around the lot, but the parking garage was empty, the way it always was that late on a Tuesday. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of printer paper. No letterhead, no signature. Just a list of names. I recognized none of them, except one. Mine. 10th from the top. Every name was typed, perfectly aligned, except the bottom one. It was handwritten, the same jagged ink as my name on the envelope. The name at the bottom was Liza Thompson. I didn't know any Liza Thompsons. I showed it to coworkers. They laughed. Weird prank, Sam said. You probably pissed off a Tinder match. But their laughs didn't stick. Something about the way Sam's eyes kept drifting back to the paper, the way he finally folded it too neatly and handed it back like it was dangerous, unsettled me. That night, I googled the first name on the list, Daniel Ruiz. News article. Local man dies in house fire. The second, Hannah Park. Woman missing after late night run. The third, the fourth, the fifth, all either dead or missing in the last 2 years. My name was 10th. I counted. 9 names above mine. All gone. I didn't sleep. I called my mom, just to hear her voice. I told her I loved her. I didn't say why. The next day I stayed home from work. Kept my doors locked. Windows checked. I watched people on the sidewalk through the blinds, looking for anyone too still, too focused. 3 days passed. No new envelope. No suspicious cars. I started to believe it really was a prank. Maybe someone was trying to scare me, or maybe the deaths were just coincidental. Maybe the list wasn't even real. Then Liza Thompson died. It was just a name, scrawled in ink, not typed like the rest. I didn't know her, but I couldn't forget it either. The article said she was stabbed in her apartment, no sign of forced entry. Her neighbor heard her screaming for 5 minutes before it stopped. 5 minutes. That detail stuck with me. The exact number, like someone had watched a timer. I checked the list again. I was still 10th. Liza was gone. Her name was already being crossed out in my head, the pen dragging through it in slow motion. I kept it with me. Carried the paper folded in my wallet like some morbid talisman. I checked it daily, compulsively, like I was waiting for my name to change or disappear. One night, I got home late and found my front door open. I live alone. I froze at the threshold, heart thudding in my ears. I whispered into the dark. Hello? Nothing. I should have called someone. But I didn't. I stepped inside, flipping lights on one by one. Everything looked untouched. Even the envelope was where I'd left it on the coffee table. I opened it. The list hadn't changed. But behind it was something new. A photograph. Taken from a distance, but unmistakable. It showed me, walking into my building, keys in hand 2 nights ago. It wasn't blurry. Whoever took it had been close. Watching. The photo changed everything. Until then, the fear had been distant, abstract. But this, it made things real. Someone had been there. Someone close enough to see my face clearly in the frame. Close enough to follow me home. I did everything you're supposed to do. Called the police. Filed a report. Showed them the list, the photo. They glanced over it like it was nothing. Could be an ex. One of them shrugged. Keep your doors locked. They didn't even keep the photo. Said I could hang on to it in case we need to follow up. I left the station with that same sinking feeling you get when the person you tell a nightmare to just nods and says, "That's wild." The next morning, someone knocked on my door. 3 slow knocks. Deliberate. I held my breath. Peeked through the peephole. A man stood there. Tall. Mid-40s. Wearing a gray raincoat, even though it wasn't raining. No umbrella. No expression. He wasn't holding anything. He didn't knock again. Just stood there for maybe a full minute before walking away. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I sat at my desk with the list spread out in front of me and started mapping the names, timelines, locations, deaths, disappearances. I built a spreadsheet, then a timeline, trying to find a pattern, anything that could explain what was happening. There wasn't one. But then something clicked. The sixth name on the list, Nadine Garza, had been reported missing the same week the seventh name, Troy R., died in a supposed hiking accident. Their locations were different, one in Phoenix, the other in Denver, but their dates overlapped too closely to be a coincidence. I kept going. With each pair of names, a similar overlap appeared. One person always disappeared just before or right after another one died. It was like there were two timelines working in tandem. I went cold. What if it wasn't one person? What if it was two? What if it was a system? I stared at my name on the list. Then below it, the now crossed out, Liza Thompson. My name was next. But what if Liza hadn't just been the next target? What if she had been part of the process? A test run? A decoy? The idea hit me like a jolt. What if the people on this list were killing each other? The thought was insane, until it wasn't. What if someone found their name and panicked? What if they believed the only way to survive was to get to the next person before someone got to them? The list wasn't a threat. It was bait. The knock came again. Same rhythm. 3 slow hits. I didn't look this time. I grabbed the envelope, the list, the photo, and shoved them into my jacket. I slipped out the fire escape and didn't look back. That was a month ago. I haven't been home since. I haven't checked the list either. I still have it, folded up in the pocket of the same jacket I wear every day. I can't bring myself to open it. Because if my name's crossed out, then someone already decided I was next. But if it's not, that means someone else's is. Either way, I don't want to know. I sleep in a different place each night. Hostels. Buses. 24-hour diners. I keep a knife in my boot and a burner phone in my bag. I don't trust anyone. Not even myself. Because here's the truth. Some nights, I find myself staring at the list. And wondering if the person below my name is still alive. It started when I moved into the new development off Route 19, one of those copy-paste suburbs where every house looks like it was printed out and dropped from a drone. Beige siding. 2-car garage. A single tree out front that casts no real shadow. I thought it would feel safe. Predictable. It didn't. The first night, I didn't sleep much. Not because of noise or neighbors. It was the opposite. The silence felt artificial, like a looped recording of quiet. Even the wind seemed engineered, like someone adjusting the volume just out of sight. I unpacked slowly. A few boxes a night. It helped me stay distracted. I kept the blinds closed, even during the day. I don't know why. The uniform rows of houses felt oppressive. Like they were watching. By the 4th night, I noticed something. At exactly 3:12 a.m., every night, a porch light 2 doors down flicked on. No movement. No sound. Just light. It stayed on for 5 minutes, then blinked off. I started setting alarms to catch it, just to prove I wasn't imagining things. I asked my neighbor, Tom, retired real estate agent, about the house. That one? He said. No one's bought it yet. Still being staged. But the porch light? He shrugged. Probably on a timer. They do that to keep squatters away. That made sense. Sort of. Until I stayed up one night and watched from my upstairs window. Right at 3:12, the porch light blinked on. And behind it, just barely, there was a shadow in the window. It moved like it was pacing. The house was supposed to be empty. I tried to convince myself it was a staging dummy, some automated feature. But the next night, I saw the same movement, slow, deliberate pacing. Then, just before the light turned off, the shadow stopped. Turned. And looked directly at my window. I ducked out of sight. The next morning, I checked the listing online. It said, available, Never occupied. I called the number. Spoke to some agent. She sounded tired. When I asked about the house, she paused and said, "That one's been tricky to sell. People always back out." "Why?" I asked. She said nothing for a full 10 seconds, then hung up. The following night, I didn't mean to fall asleep. But I did. I woke up at 3:21 a.m., heart pounding like I'd been shocked. I ran to the window. The porch light was off. The street was dark. But on my own lawn, just outside the reach of my porch light, something stood. A shape. I couldn't see a face. But it was watching me. I didn't move. I stayed frozen at the window, convinced that if I looked away, it would vanish or move closer. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually it stepped backward, still facing me, and melted into the darkness. I called the police. They sent a cruiser. Found nothing. When I told them what house it had come from, one of the officers glanced at the other, then told me to keep my doors locked and maybe invest in motion cameras. The next day, a new sign was up outside the house. Not for sale. Not sold. Just a white board that read in all caps, "Under review." I asked Tom about it. He wouldn't answer. Just turned back toward his own house and closed the door. That night, I stayed up with a bat in my lap. At 3:12, the porch light turned on again. But this time, the figure wasn't inside the house. It was standing on the sidewalk between our driveways. I didn't blink. Didn't move. The figure was just standing there. Perfectly still. Not looking at me, not doing anything. Just standing, halfway between my house and the one with the porch light. As if undecided. It stayed there until 3:17 a.m., 5 minutes to the second, then turned and walked back toward the empty house. As soon as it stepped onto the porch, the light shut off. I sat in my dark bedroom for the rest of the night, heart hammering. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I called the homeowners association, demanded to know who owned that property. The woman on the phone hesitated when I gave the address. I heard her keyboard stop clacking. "There's no active file for that house," she said. "It's been flagged." "Flagged how?" "Sir," she said quietly, "it's best not to ask too many questions about 1832, Alder Drive." I didn't say anything else. Just hung up. That night, I bought blackout curtains. But curiosity is a stronger thing than fear. That following Friday, I walked over to the house just after sundown. The front door wasn't locked. It creaked open at the slightest push, like it had been waiting. The air inside was heavy still. No furniture. No dust either. The place felt recently empty, like someone had just stepped out to grab the mail. I moved through the room slowly. Every window was shut. The kitchen light flickered once and stayed on. The fridge was unplugged. In the hallway, I saw something that stopped me. A wall covered in notes. Post-its, napkins, notebook scraps, taped and pinned in rows. Names. Dozens of them. Some crossed out in red pen. Some with numbers beside them. One stood out. "Calby, House 1840, new arrival." That was me. I had never told anyone my full address. I stepped back. Behind me, a floorboard creaked. I spun around. Nothing. I ran. As I reached the front door, I saw it again, just a glimpse. The figure. Standing halfway up the stairs, watching me from the shadows. I couldn't see its face, but it was holding something. A notepad. It didn't move. Neither did I. Then it raised one arm slowly, like it was about to wave, but instead, it pointed. Right at me. I bolted. That night, I didn't turn off the lights. I didn't sit by the window. I sat on the kitchen floor, every light on, knife in hand. And at 3:12 a.m. I heard it. Not outside. Not next door. Inside. The porch light at 1832 didn't come on that night. Because it wasn't in that house anymore. It was in mine. A single knock on my bedroom door. I didn't go check. The next morning, I found a note on my fridge. It wasn't there the night before. It just read, "You've been reviewed." I moved out that day. Left everything. Clothes, furniture, even my laptop. Drove until the neighborhoods changed, until the houses stopped looking the same. A week later, I checked the property listing from a library computer. 1832, Alder Drive was no longer listed as under review. It was now marked as available, never occupied. No mention of me. No mention of anyone. Sometimes I drive through new neighborhoods, one still under construction. When I see the rows of identical houses, my hands start to shake. Because every time, eventually, I spot one house with the porch light on in the middle of the night. And someone standing at the window. Watching. The first one showed up in my mailbox on a Tuesday. A tiny canvas square, maybe 4 inches by 4, hand-stitched with red thread. A single word. Listen. No return address, no note. Just the square, neatly folded into an unmarked envelope. At first, I thought it was a mistake, junk mail maybe. But I kept it. Something about the meticulous stitching made me feel like throwing it away would be a mistake. The next one came 4 days later. This time, the square said, "Stay." Same size, same thread, same envelope. Still no explanation. That night, I dreamed of needles. Hundreds of them, long and silver, falling from the ceiling like rain. I stood in a kitchen I didn't recognize, barefoot, the tiles cold. On the floor, red thread tangled around my ankles. From the shadows beyond the window, I saw eyes. Watching. Then a voice. "She's making them now." I woke up choking. I told myself it was stress. Work had been rough. I'd been behind on deadlines. Maybe my brain just needed an outlet. I threw both stitched pieces into a drawer. Out of sight, out of mind. A week passed. Then the third one arrived. This one wasn't a word. It was an image, crude, but unmistakable. A small figure, sitting upright in bed, arms held stiff at its sides. Behind it, in the corner of the frame, another shape. Taller. Featureless. Looming. The stitching was rougher this time, less symmetrical. Like whoever had made it had been in a rush. That night I stayed up. I sat in bed with the light on and stared at the closet door, irrationally convinced it might swing open at any second. At 2:17 a.m., I heard something fall in the kitchen. A soft clatter, like a fork sliding off a counter. I didn't go check. In the morning, the kitchen was fine. But on the table, right in the center, was the fourth square. This one said, "Don't move." I started asking around. I showed my neighbor Beth the squares. She laughed, nervous. "Weird hobby you've picked up." I told her I wasn't making them. Her smile vanished. She leaned in. "You know, the lady who used to live here? Before you?" She stitched. Always had a needle in her hand. "I only met her once. Nice enough, but something was off." "What happened to her?" Beth shrugged. "Moved out. In the middle of the night. Husband said she'd gone to stay with family. No forwarding address." I didn't believe it. Not after Square 5 arrived. It showed my face. Not an abstract version. Not a smiley or a symbol. My actual face, my beard, my glasses, the mole on my cheek, all in red thread. Underneath it, in smaller letters. "Soon." I called the police. Told them someone was stalking me. I handed over the envelopes. They opened a case but didn't sound hopeful. "If they haven't threatened you directly, there's not much we can do." They took a photo of the stitched face and left. That night, I tore my apartment apart looking for cameras. For microphones. For any clue that could explain how someone was seeing me closely enough to recreate my face in thread. I found nothing. At 3:01 a.m. my doorbell rang. Just once. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The bell echoed in the apartment like it had been pressed by something heavy. Or desperate. In the morning, Square 6 was in my mailbox. It showed my apartment door. Opened. I didn't sleep that night. I sat with my back to the door, a kitchen knife in hand, the stitched square lying face up on the floor beside me. My door open. That was the message. Or maybe a memory. Or maybe a warning. I double-checked the locks. Triple-checked. But some small, unrelenting doubt crept in. What if they'd already been inside? What if they'd never left? At dawn, I walked to the leasing office. Told them I wanted security footage from the hallway. They looked confused. "We don't have cameras on that floor," the woman said. "Just the entrances." "What about maintenance logs? Anyone enter my unit last night?" She pulled it up. Shook her head. "No entries in the last 2 weeks." I didn't go home. I walked the city until my legs burned. I ended up at a library, digging through public records on the apartment. Her name had been Melissa Kane. The woman before me. Quiet, early 30s, lived alone. She filed 3 noise complaints. Then nothing. Just vanished. No record of a move out. No contact info. No lease termination. I found one article. Buried on a local blog, dated 9 months ago. "Midtown woman reported missing." There was a photo of Melissa. She looked tired. In the picture, she was holding something, barely visible. A square of cloth. I printed it. When I finally returned home, everything was exactly as I left it. That made me feel worse. Like whatever was happening didn't need to move things. Like it was already in control. That night, no bell. No noise. I locked myself in the bathroom with the light on. Sat in the tub fully clothed, hugging a backpack stuffed with kitchen utensils and the printed photo of Melissa. Around 2:45 a.m., I heard a sound. Thread. Being pulled tight. Not scratching. Not creaking. A tugging sound, soft but unmistakable, from behind the wall. I pressed my ear to the tile. It stopped. Silence again. In the morning, square 7 was on my pillow. This one was different. The canvas had changed, now yellowed, stiff like it had been soaked and dried. The stitching was frantic. The thread thicker, almost ropey. A single phrase, uneven. Behind the wall. I moved out that day. Left everything. I slept in my car for a week. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. What was behind the wall? Was it a metaphor? A warning? Or something literal? I caved. Went back one last time. I told myself it was to retrieve documents. But really, it was for the wall. I brought a hammer. The bathroom wall gave easier than I thought. Behind it, insulation. Dust. And then, fabric. Rolled tight, stuffed into the beams. I tugged it free. It was a bag. Old. Inside, dozens of squares. Hundreds maybe. Each one stitched with something. Faces, doors, clocks, warnings. One showed a woman curled in a corner, her face covered. Another showed a figure crouched behind a bed. And dozens were blank. Waiting. I called the police again. This time, I had something physical. They took the bag. Promised to follow up. I never heard back. But I know this, the stitched squares haven't stopped. They come less often now. Maybe once a month. Sometimes they show unfamiliar places. Sometimes my current apartment. Sometimes places I haven't been, yet. But one thing never changes. Every square now includes 2 figures. One small. Cowering. Familiar. And one tall. Getting closer. The first voicemail came at 2:37 a.m. I didn't hear it until the next morning. The timestamp caught my eye. Who calls at that hour? The number was unfamiliar, just a string of digits with no name attached. The message was 12 seconds of silence, except for a faint static crackle. Near the end, I thought I heard something, like a breath. One, low and shaky. I deleted it. The second voicemail came 2 nights later. Same time. Same number. This one had sound, barely. A whisper, almost lost in the static. "Do you remember the shed?" I played it 5 times. The voice was hoarse, distant, almost like it had been recorded through a wall. I didn't recognize it. I don't have a shed. I tried calling the number back. It rang once, then disconnected. I checked the area code, rural Wisconsin. I've never been to Wisconsin. By the end of the week, there were 4 more voicemails. One each night, always between 2:30 and 2:40 a.m. Each one whispered something different. Why did you leave me there? I never stopped waiting. It's still locked. And then, the 6th message. I still hear the door. I started leaving my phone on silent, face down, trying to ignore the ritual of waking to a new message. But I couldn't stop myself from listening. I never responded. Never answered. But I started dreaming. The dreams always began the same way, standing in a backyard I didn't recognize, facing a small wooden shed. Its paint was peeling, the door hanging slightly ajar. I would walk toward it, hand outstretched, but always wake before I touched it. The dreams grew sharper. I started recognizing details. A rusted bike leaning against a tree. A child's glove in the grass. A red bucket. Always in the same places. I was starting to think I had seen this place before. Somewhere buried deep in my memory. Then the 7th voicemail came. I remember your shoes. That detail shook me more than it should have. When I was 7, I had a pair of bright orange sneakers I loved. I wore them every day for nearly a year. My parents joked that they could see me coming from 2 blocks away. I stopped sleeping. Started pacing instead. Checking locks. I moved my bed away from the window. I kept my phone off for 2 days. When I turned it back on, there were no new messages. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I felt dread. That night, I dreamed again. But it was different. I wasn't outside. I was inside the shed. It was dark, but I could see shapes, boxes, tools, a rotted chair. And in the corner, a small mattress. Dirty. Torn. I woke up gasping. I didn't go to work the next day. I stayed in, trying to piece together memories that didn't feel like mine. I called my mom, asked about any trips we'd taken when I was young. Any places we might have lived, even briefly. She hesitated. There was a house, she finally said. When you were 5. We only stayed a few months. You had nightmares. Was there a shed? Silence. Then, yes. I pressed her. She didn't want to talk. Said I was too young to remember, and it didn't matter. That I'd made it up, even then. I hung up on her. That night, I left my phone on the nightstand, screen up. At 2:39 a.m., the screen lit up. No number. Just one word, unknown. I didn't answer. The voicemail arrived seconds later. I'm not in the shed anymore. I played the message only once. I'm not in the shed anymore. The voice had changed. Clearer. Closer. The static was gone, and for the first time, I heard breathing. Rhythmic, steady. Like someone was holding the phone inches from their face. I turned off the voicemail and stared at the wall for a long time. That day, I drove to my parents' house, unannounced. My mother looked like she hadn't slept. My father wouldn't meet my eyes. I need to see the place, I told them. No, she said immediately. I've been there in dreams, I said. I can describe everything. The bucket, the glove, You don't understand what you're remembering. Then help me. My father left the room. She finally relented. Gave me the address. But if you go, she said, don't open anything. Don't touch anything. It was a 5-hour drive. The property was still there, though the house had long since been abandoned. Overgrown yard, sagging porch, broken fence. But the shed, it looked exactly as I remembered. I parked down the block, walked the last 100 yards. There were no other houses nearby. Just trees and the hushed sound of wind moving through tall grass. The shed door was shut. No lock. I didn't go inside. Not yet. I circled it. 3 times. The back had a boarded window. A smear of something dark stained one corner of the wood. I couldn't tell if it was old paint or something else. I pressed my hand against the door. It was warm. I left without going in. I don't know why. Maybe because I knew if I opened that door, something inside would look back. Something that had waited far too long. I drove back in silence. That night, I put my phone in a drawer, turned off all the lights, and tried to sleep. At 2:42 a.m., the screen lit up. This time, there was no voicemail. Just the call. It rang 6 times. Then stopped. In the morning, my phone was on the kitchen counter. I hadn't left it there. I never leave it there. There was a new photo in my camera roll. Blurry. Taken from low to the ground. Looking up at me. Sleeping. I moved apartments within the week. Changed numbers. Went dark on social media. Told friends I was dealing with anxiety, unplugging, trying something new. For a while it worked. No calls. No dreams. Until this morning. A single envelope outside my door. No stamp. Just taped to the wood. Inside, a photograph. The shed. Its door open. And someone standing just inside, arms at their sides, head tilted. Looking out. On the back of the photo, a note in the same jagged scrawl I remembered from the early voicemails. You left the door open. I've stayed up all night. I've checked every room, every closet, every corner. But now, I can feel it again. The pressure behind the silence. Like someone is waiting for me to sleep. And I keep thinking about what the voice said. It's not in the shed anymore. Which means it's here. Somewhere. Maybe in the crawl space. Maybe behind the mirror. Or maybe just outside the door, waiting for 2:39 a.m. Waiting to call again. It started with a voicemail from my sister. Not the usual. Call me back. Or, you forgot Mom's birthday again. Just 5 seconds of breathing, then her voice, clipped and panicked. He's counting again. I called back. Straight to voicemail. I hadn't heard from her in months. We weren't exactly close, different cities, different lives, but she never sounded like that. I texted. Nothing. Drove 6 hours to her place the next day. Her apartment door was unlocked. Inside, the lights were all on. Dishes in the sink, TV buzzing static. No signs of struggle, just absence. Like she'd stepped out mid-sentence. I called the police. Filed a report. They asked about mental health. I said she was stable. They didn't look convinced. Her phone was gone. Laptop too. Her car was still parked outside, keys on the table. That night, I stayed in her place. Around 2 a.m. I heard ticking. Not from a clock. It was sharper, metallic. Like an old stopwatch being reset. Click. Tick tick tick. Click. It was coming from the hallway. I opened the door. No one there. Just the sound, faint and rhythmic, moving further down the hall like it was being carried. I didn't sleep. In the morning, I found something on the kitchen counter. A post-it note I hadn't seen the night before. My name, in her handwriting, underlined twice. Below it. Don't let him finish counting. I tried rationalizing it. Stress. A breakdown. Maybe she'd gotten caught up in something, paranoia, a cult, I didn't know. But the sound stayed with me. Even during the day, I thought I could hear it, just below the hum of the fridge, behind the shower stream. Click. Tick tick. Click. I found her journal in the bedroom. She hadn't used it in months, but the last 5 pages were filled with the same 2 lines, over and over. He counts in 3s. Time isn't what he wants, it's how he finds you. The pages were smudged. Some of the ink looked smeared, like she'd been writing fast. Or crying. I stayed another night. I had to understand. At 2:03 a.m., I heard the sound again. Louder this time. Closer. Click. Tick tick. Click. I got out of bed, crept to the living room. It was dark. No movement. But the ticking came from behind the front door. Click. Tick tick. I stood there, holding my breath. Then it stopped. Silence. Then one knock. Not heavy. Not urgent. Just a single knock. Like someone tapping politely. I didn't move. No second knock came. I waited until morning, then left. Told the police again. They said they'd look into it. They didn't. Back home, I tried to move on. But the sound came with me. It started in dreams. Always the same scene, a long corridor, empty and gray. I'd hear the click first. Then ticking. Then footsteps, measured and steady, moving toward me. But I never saw him. I'd always wake up when he got too close. Then one night I didn't wake up. I saw him. Tall. Thin. Face featureless. Like someone erased it. Holding a silver stopwatch in his right hand. He clicked it once. The ticking began. He raised 3 fingers. Lowered one. Then another. Just one left. I woke up screaming. And on my pillow was something cold. A silver stopwatch. I stared at the stopwatch like it might disappear. It didn't. Cold, silver, and real. No markings. Just a smooth face and a single button on top. I didn't press it. Instead, I slid it into a drawer and tried to pretend the night never happened. It didn't work. The ticking started again 2 nights later. No source. No device. Just the same click. Tick-tick. Click. In the walls, in the pipes, in my head. I tried sleeping with music. With TV. With white noise. Nothing drowned it out. It was always louder. Always there. I remembered what the note had said. Don't let him finish counting. But what happens if he does? I tried to call my sister again. Her number was disconnected. I drove back to her apartment. Someone new was living there, some couple with a toddler. They let me look around out of pity. All the furniture was different. No trace of her ever having lived there. But I knew the ticking had been real. I still heard it. That night I dreamed again. Same hallway. Same figure. Only this time, I couldn't move. I was rooted in place, like the floor was holding me down. He raised his hand. 1 finger. Then 2. Then 3. He clicked the stopwatch. And the world bent inward. I woke gasping. My nose was bleeding. My clock read 3:03 a.m. The ticking hadn't stopped. I checked the drawer. The stopwatch was gone. I searched the apartment, every room, every drawer, every pocket. Nothing. It was just gone. The next night, a new sound joined the ticking. Breathing. Shallow. Wet. Close. It came from behind the mirror. I left the apartment and didn't go back. I started sleeping in my car. Then in motels. Always on the move. Never the same place twice. But the ticking followed. Even across state lines. Even in dreams. Especially in dreams. Then came the message. On a gas station receipt, tucked under my wiper. No one had seen who left it. When he reaches 0, it's not him you lose. I started asking questions online. Deep forums, paranormal threads. One name kept coming up, the counter. No one knew where the stories began. Some said it was a ghost. Others a curse. One person claimed it was a psychological contagion, something you catch by hearing it. No one had answers. Just stories like mine. A missing sibling. A stopwatch. A count of 3. Some said they'd stopped it, by confronting him, facing the corridor. But every story ended the same way, silence. No follow-up. No resolution. Until one post. It was from a burner account. Dated a month before my sister vanished. It just said, "He only counts once per bloodline." I didn't know what to do with that. I still don't. But last night, I dreamed again. He was closer than ever. I could see the second hand of the stopwatch. It was halfway through a turn. He looked at me with that featureless face, and for the first time, he spoke. "You've wasted so much time." Then he clicked the watch again. and the ticking stopped. I woke up in total silence. No hum from the fridge. No birds outside. Even my own breathing sounded muffled. On the floor beside my bed was a folded piece of paper. One word, written in my sister's handwriting. Run! I don't know where to go. I don't know how far I have left. But I know one thing. The stopwatch is ticking again. And this time, there's no one left between him and me.